The stock market had another really strong week last week, and the question is, can this keep going, and which stocks could potentially be set to outperform? Well, in this video, we're going to take a high-level view of the overall stock market, some of the forces that are impacting that, as well as some of the top individual holdings in my portfolio, as well as stocks that I'm looking to consider buying or adding position to. Let's jump into it. As we get started, if you could do me a favor, make sure to subscribe if you're new to this channel here on the stock channel, and hit that thumbs up button. I greatly appreciate it. S&P 500 through the ticker symbol SPY has been trending higher here ever since all the craziness in April, where we got a huge flag of kind of oversold readings across the board. We've since reversed course and really started to rip higher here. However, I think that we are actually getting some signs here that the market itself is a little bit stretched to the upside. If we mark our previous all-time high with a horizontal ray, you can see that pretty much we have taken back confidently the all-time high on the SPY. And if I use a simple, for example, momentum indicator, you can see that the stock market is clearly now back in bull territory. Things look really strong for stocks. And I don't think that this is necessarily a bearish thing that we are stretched. However, I personally have been saying this for a while. I can't really justify adding more shares to my positions when markets are kind of all-time highs, breaking out and looking so strong. I do like to buy stocks when they're weak, especially stuff that I want to buy longer term. I just think your risk to reward skews way better when the market itself is down. That being said, am I going to wait for another big major market correction? No, because I think the market can continue to push higher. However, where I think risk to reward gets a lot more attractive for me when I'm talking about the SPY specifically would be like a retest of the 590 to 595 range. Somewhere in this area looks a lot more attractive to me for buying stocks again. Now, when it comes to what I would be buying, that's where we're going to get into in this video, talk about some individual stocks. But the SPY to me looks a little stretched. I do think we're due for a pullback, and somewhere in this region between 590 to 610 looks a whole lot more attractive using our simple momentum kind of scan that we just have got here, our momentum indicator. This is available on our website, a1trading.com, by the way. So anyways, I do think that the stock market looks very strong and is set to continue. We also have DIA. This is the Dow Jones Industrial Average looking strong here as well. You can take a look at tech, QQQ looking really good. So path of least resistance to me is still higher. However, I don't necessarily think the risk to reward is attractive at these levels as if we were to get a correction of, let's see what this would be in terms of the NASDAQ. Specifically, you're talking about a pullback in the 5 to 6% range at the very minimum. Now, if we do get a bigger retracement, then I start to actually get even more attracted to buying some of my favorite stocks in the market, which are, let's go ahead and jump into some of those. First and foremost up on the list, we've got to talk about this hood position that I'm in. So I have HOOD shares, and I've got a little bit of an options trade on right now. In fact, I have several options traders running, but you can see I'm running some really good positions on HOOD down here. So this is Robinhood stock, Robinhood markets. Maybe a lot of you guys even use Robinhood to trade. I really like Hood shares, and they've absolutely gone parabolic on me. My average share price of Robinhood is $40 per share, so way back over here. I bought shares in Robinhood, and I'm sitting on a massive 143% gain. However, I'm in a little bit of a predicament because I've actually sold the $95 strike price calls. The expiration date here for my calls are the vertical line that you see here, and the $95 strike price is here. So essentially, I've capped my upside. So if it keeps going higher from here, then I don't see any more gains. However, I collected a premium of $7.67 for shorting that call. So I got paid to sell this call. However, if the stock goes higher, I do not gain any more on the shares because, again, I'm going to lose money on the calls even if I'm making money on the shares, hence making my upside capped. However, if we do get a corrective pullback, which I think would be healthy for Hood stock because this thing has been on such a monumental, massive upward trend. You can see the RSI up in overbought territory several times here recently and hovering there as we speak. So I do think that the stock is due for a bit of a pullback. Take a look at your Bollinger Bands, right? You're pretty close to the upper limits here. I would not be surprised between now and this expiration date if Robinhood sort of traded sideways or even reversed lower for some time, especially as I think that the market itself is a little bit stretched higher. So that's my position on Robinhood. Love the stock. They're doing some crazy exciting things, but I think that the market is a little red hot in terms of excitement for this stock. Back here, people were not so excited about it, and I was a lot more interested in buying shares. At this point, I'm looking to actually sell calls against my position. Let's talk about another stock that I'm looking at. This is probably the easiest one on the list and the one that I would like to buy more shares in the most. I have 200 shares of Google. I'm sitting currently on an 8.84% gain in Google. I am up about $2,900 on this trade, and I want more shares. I would love to get this position to be a 500 share plus position for me, looking for pullbacks. And I do like the idea, if we get a market sell-off, in building this position, actually adding more shares below 165 would be a attractive thing for me. So if I go back over here and we pull up the stock box here, actually we should have done this earlier. Here's your advanced decline market breadth chart showing us that stocks overall are very participating at this time. We have, of our stock list, we have over 66%, 65 and 64% above their 50, 100-day and 200-day moving averages respectively. Just 55.5% for the 20-day moving average, as stocks have just sort of gone sideways or slightly lower this week across the board. So yeah, this is showing participation is pretty strong across the board currently for stocks, which I like to see quite a bit of a bullish confirmation on that front. I do want to jump into the financials report very quickly here on the stock box for Google shares. So if I pull this up and I type in GOOGL, we've got Google. And this is why I love this company and why I want to buy more shares. Now, first of all, there's so many things that I like about Google. YouTube, right? And I'm going to talk about the negatives in just a second. YouTube is a huge platform that, people, you're watching it right now, right? YouTube, you have the Google Suite, right? Which is all sorts of the Microsoft competitors, your Google Docs, Google Drive, Google, all those different things, Google Sheets, Google Presentations, right? There's all different, or Google Slides, right? There's just all sorts of different tools that I think are great there. You also, of course, have this exciting new stuff with Waymo, which I think is a huge potential for Google that is undervalued at this time, right? So you have YouTube, you have Google Suite, you have Waymo, and of course you have search, right? Google Search, which we all know well. But this is the one that we need to talk about for a second. People ask all the time, or actually not necessarily ask, but talk about all the time, the concerns around Google Search. Google Search is going to get killed by all these AI search bots, right? Or chat bots. That's what people's fear is. But if you've actually heard about Gemini, which is currently, by the way, it's rated the highest or strongest chat AI on the list right now. You can go search that up. Right now, if you go look at the betting markets, by 2025 or 2026, it's betted currently to be the favorite in terms of the highest performing AI chatbot. So Google is owning all these monstrous businesses all in one. You kind of get all of it. By the way, there's Chrome as well. I mean, there's a number of them that I have not mentioned here. It's personally, in my opinion, at this current valuation, if the market were to pull back a little bit, this would be my favorite stock to pick up shares in personally. Now, if we take a look at Google in terms of their income, rising net revenues, net income, profit margins, all on the rise. Even if Google search is under scrutiny, here's one thing that I really like. It's trading somewhere in the range of a 19 to 20 forward price to earnings ratio. This is historically low for Google, and it's very strong overall. We can actually scan this overall. Let's actually increase this to let's just see if we can go back 55 months or so. What you can see here is that in terms of the historical PE ratio, and this is something that I think is very important to look at, you want to look at this green bar. This green bar is how expensive Google has traded relative to its earnings in the past. And you can see that it's actually at a low point here, right? It's trading relatively cheap versus its own history. Now, again, ignore the share price for a second or the market cap. Just look at the PE ratio, and you can see that over time, this has traded lower, meaning the cost of this stock per share per earnings, right? It's per its earnings, is cheaper than it used to be over here. Now, of course, in 2022, all markets or the stock market across the board went down quite a bit. But to me, it's like you're getting great value for a monster business. So to me, Google is my number one favorite stock at this time. And I've said that many times on this channel. And I'm looking to actively buy the dip if we can get one. Now, of course, there's been a big dip in Google, and it's not recovered nearly as well as some of the other competitors out there. You have things like Microsoft, but these things, all these Mag 7 stocks, they do this, right? They go in and out of favor. A couple months ago, Microsoft was out of favor big time and actually went trading sideways for a couple years there even. But now Microsoft is a popular one, right? So Google, same thing. Google was super popular for some time and has now kind of lost its favorability. But to me, I think it will come roaring back when people realize that even with other chat AI stuff coming to the table, the pie is getting bigger and Google search can coexist and actually still be a monster for this company. And I think that I think it's actually potentially undervalued. Now, again, I don't necessarily say buy it right now for my own portfolio. I need to wait for the market itself to cool off a little bit. But on a dip in the market, I do like the idea of adding more shares to my Google position. Let's keep going. In terms of, like I said, it's not a huge position in my portfolio. Google, I've got 200 shares. I'd like to get that to be a lot bigger. Let's talk about some other stuff here in the portfolio. Of course, popular one on this channel is talking a little bit about Tesla. So Tesla has been ripping here, and I've been on this campaign here recently of wanting to sell Tesla shares through a covered call. Now, you'll notice that I have no calls sold right now. I actually closed out and made around $750 on the calls that I shorted. I sold calls and I bought them back for $750 profit this past week. So I made $750 on that trade, not so bad. And now I still have my 400 shares of Tesla. My goal is actually to decrease this number. Why don't I just sell it? Well, because I don't mind the idea of actually getting paid to wait. Now, so essentially what I mean by that is I think that Tesla still can go up. I believe in the company. I like the optimist stuff. I love the self-driving stuff. I love the idea of Tesla, Waymo, Uber, Google, all these things. I think the pie will get so big in terms of autonomous driving and driving services. I like the idea of owning a little bit of all of them. The problem for me, though, is that my position in Tesla is way too big for my portfolio, and it's become so because we've had a big bounce in the stock. At one point, it was bigger. We've given it back a little bit, but if we do get some push up in the stock, I am looking to sell. I've talked about this before. I'm looking specifically to sell the 375 calls, but specifically, there's a certain amount I would be looking for in terms of getting paid to wait on this one. If we do break higher, I'd like to ideally have at least a max profit of $1,000 for shorting this call. And I'm currently not quite able to get the premium that I want putting the trade a month out. So with a month expiration, I'd like to make at least $1,000 on the trade to make it worth kind of the income. So right now, if Tesla stock can jump up on Monday, that may give me the opportunity to finally sell those calls again and get back into that trade. Again, essentially what happened is I shorted calls right here. Stock dropped. I covered it for $750 profit, and now I'm looking to jump back into the trade by selling fresh calls at the $375 strike price. Currently, don't have those on. Love the stock. I think it has plenty of potential. I love the innovation. And I also, fingers crossed, hope that Elon Musk will come back full force. And I do hope that he will put the political stuff to the side. Personally, as a shareholder, I just want to see him back on the SpaceX and Tesla grind. I think that's where he is best fitted personally. Anyways, moving on from that, let's also talk about Amazon. Amazon had lackluster Prime Day numbers. However, I've been talking about this a lot on my channel recently. I think that there may have been some pull forward due to the tariff worries. People might have bought a lot of inventory for their home, for their goods, for their businesses, etc., off of Amazon ahead of time in anticipation of possible tariff price changes. And I think that may have cut slightly into Prime Day. Seems like the market was not too phased with slowing Prime Day sales numbers. And so to me, Amazon is another stock that I really like. It's one of my biggest positions. I've got 260 shares owned on Amazon. If the market keeps melting up, then I may look to sell calls against maybe 100 shares of my Amazon position, or maybe 2 contracts, depends. But to me, this would have to be one where I'm looking to get good premium, probably at like the 250 to 255 call level. So I'd be interested in possibly selling some calls against this position. I do think it's starting to get a little stretched, but I'll keep an eye on it because this thing, it's a stock that I love, and I don't mind holding it in the portfolio either. So I'm keeping an eye. I'm up 20% on this position so far. Let's keep going. If we take a look at positions here, what else do we have? Oh, yeah, we can talk about Delta. So Delta, A little bit of a, not a great trade from my side here with Delta. Delta exploded here on its earnings. It had really good earnings numbers. I own the stock, which is great, except for the fact that I've also shorted calls at the $55 strike price, which means we're pretty much at the strike price at this time. And we've still got, a month to go, a little under a month to go until these calls expire. So if the stock from here, essentially, if it keeps going, I do not see any extra gain, and that the losses on the calls that I sold will wipe out the gains on the stock. However, if the stock goes sideways to down, these calls will actually become profitable if they are at or basically if they're below strike price by expiration date. And by the way, they also will have some value even if the price is at or slightly above due to the premium collected. I collected for selling this call $1.25 with a low share price stock like Delta at $56. Currently, this was actually a pretty good premium that I collected on this one, but of course, not going so hot because the stock jumped so much. The calls that I shorted they're underwater right now. So we'll see. I'm happy to get called away from the shares at $55. Honestly, this is a huge gain even with this. If everything closed out and I make, $10,500, that's a 50%. 49% gain on the stock. I will absolutely take that in terms of a trade that I did during the sell-off that we saw in April. So that's another kind of interesting position in my portfolio. I rolled my calls out on AXP. This is American Express, upper end consumer, a play that I've really liked this stock for some time. I did sell some calls at the strike price here that you see, 320. So I don't have any upside past 320. We're pretty much close, pretty much at the money at this time on those. So I do like American Express as a stock that I like. And if I get called away, will be a stock that I'll probably look to add in terms of if it goes down. By the way, I should mention this Stockbox that I mentioned earlier. That is, you can actually try it out now. We've just officially set up a trial system. If you would like to try out the Stockbox, it is a $199 fee that you have to pay to try it out for a month. You get 30 days access to the tool for just $199, and this amount of money gets credited towards your final purchase of the Stockbox. If that's something that you're interested in exploring, I'll leave a link in the description down below. Or if you just want to get the full thing, if you like it, if you think, I just see the value, then check it out. You've got a promo code and link in the description to get a 40% off discount of the tool for a one-time payment. It is not a recurring model. It is just you pay once, you get access to our tools and report. And we, of course, continuously add and update and improve the tool as time goes on. So if you want to study more financial data, technical data, sentiment data, all that for stocks, that is now available with the Stockbox. Link and information is in the description down below. That is pretty much all I've got here for you today. Remember, if you want to try it out, I'll leave the trial link in the description as well. Thanks so much. Have a great week ahead.